Good afternoon. My name is Asada Williams, and welcome to MU Reports. Today, we will be interviewing several people involved in the mock trial that took place on April 12th. To start off, we have Professor Wendy Vonnegut. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
So, what part did you play in the mock trial?
I'm the director of the Legal Studies program, and every spring I teach a course called Law in the Legal System, and it's a justice course, a political science course, and it's also a law course. And so the students do a criminal mock trial to really learn about how the criminal system works. So 18 years ago, students came up to me and said the best way for us to learn is do a mock trial.
To actually do it, yeah.
And so we did, and every spring we go to the Cumberland County Courthouse and we do a criminal mock trial in front of Senior Superior Court Judge Jim Ammons. The jury's made up of faculty, local attorneys, some of the students volunteer, some of the alumni show up. And this year was kind of special because we did it with the nursing department. They had asked if they could be involved in the criminal mock trial. So we found a scenario where we had a nurse that was accused of murdering a patient in the hospital.
Oh, wow. Okay. So like Death of Angel type thing.
Yeah, and it was good because the nursing students had to educate the attorneys and the witnesses about the medical terminology, because attorneys learn the law. We don't learn about,
right,
medicine.
It's extra research.
Right. So they did all the research as part of one of their classes, and they prepped the witnesses to include the defendant, who was a political science major, but by the time they got done with him, you thought he was in the nursing program. They created all the medical records, they created everything that we needed for the medical portion of the trial.
So you say you've been doing this for 18 years and that the nursing students were a part of this mock trial. What else set this apart from the rest of them?
I think the main thing is we did it with the nursing students, and we've never done that before. In the fall, we did a civil one with the cybersecurity students, but we've never coordinated it to do a criminal case with another department, such as nursing. And that was really different, to give the nursing students what it's like to be a part of a criminal trial, what it's like to testify, what it's like to put evidence together. And so it was the first time we've had to coordinate, and we coordinated with another department, and it was really a great experience.
So overall, do you feel like this was your best mock trial?
I don't know if it was the best mock trial. I think every mock trial has good parts and bad parts. I think this year's was just so different because we did it with the nursing department. I think it was a great experience for all the students, and that's why we do it, so that they learn. I'm very hands-on, and the best way to do it is in a courtroom. So it's great we were in courtroom 4B, so they're in a real courtroom, and they have a court reporter, and the judge is up there, and so it's really cool.
Okay, thank you so much for coming here and speaking to us today. So you guys, we're going to go ahead and cut into video and show you all some parts of the mock trial.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So it really concerned you?
It did concern me, yes.
Can you explain to us why that concerned you?
Because I asked him if he really believed all of this, and his response to me was, why didn't I believe it?
Okay, let's move on to the night that Mrs. Esadera died. Do you recall that night?
I do. We had a full ward, and we were short-staffed, and so I decided to, normally I wouldn't take on patients, but I decided to take on a couple patients to help the nurse-patient ratio be decreased.
Okay. Now, what made you believe that you could take on these extra patients?
In order to be a charge nurse, you have to be deemed a competent, strong nurse. I was a charge nurse, so I was deemed that. I also had a couple of years more experience than some of the nurses working that night.
Objection, relevance.
Relevance goes to the night of question.
But you're asking. Okay.
So do you remember what happened next during the shift?
Yes. At one point, Casey had came to me asking if he could take a patient, bring a patient onto the floor from the ED, and I had agreed. He had just had a bed open up on his quad, and so I agreed that if he wanted to take on the extra patient, that.
And I have Miss Shelley here today with me. She was also a part of this year's mock trial. So what was your position, your role in the mock trial this year?
My role in the mock trial was the medical examiner.
And tell me what a medical examiner does.
Well, a medical examiner, we work on the anatomic physiology and forensic physiology, which basically it's how we apply the law is through the forensics pathophysiology on a client. We get the records from the hospital and they come over to us and we basically dissect what happened to the patient. What was the cause of death?
Right, so you're not on the defense part and you're not on the prosecutor's part. You're really just stating the facts.
Well, on this particular case, I was on the prosecutor's
Really?
side, yes, because it was detrimental what I had to say as far as what the nurse did and what she gave the patient that actually killed the patient.
So what kind of preparation did you have to do personally before the mock trial?
Well, before the mock trial, I was given my fact statement because my name was Dr. Raganusas. That was hard to do in the trial.
It's a hard name.
I had to hurry up and spit that out. Look, people laughed at me because I was like, if I don't say it now, I'm not going to say it. But basically, I've been in healthcare for 25 years, and I was a nursing student, which I'm still a nursing student. So some of the background stuff, I didn't have to have help from the nurses or anything like that. This was something right in my wheelhouse.
It was
so
natural.
to speak, natural. Some of the stuff that I really studied too in depth on things, which actually helped me in the mock trial. I was a doctor for a day.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty nice. It was cool to be able to get up there and actually go in depth about the patient, the drugs, and the chemical process. I did a blackboard demonstration in the trial that explained the drugs and took the jury and everybody through a process on why oleandrin killed the patient, which was the herb that killed the patient.
Cool. So how do you think your other peers felt about being a part of the mock trial, the nursing students?
I think they liked it. Participating in it, it also gave them a sense of what it feels like to be someone's court. And when you're in patient care, you never know what's going to happen. You could very easily misuse something or not follow policy on the court. So it's a good experience overall just to kind of get your feet wet. And for me, I'd never been in a courtroom, so it was pretty interesting for me.
And I was at the mock trial, so how hard was it to actually teach the other students that was a part of the law classes the medical terminology?
Well, for me, I can't really take credit for any of that. I know that the medical field is a different language of its own.
Yes.
So if you're not affiliated with it or not versed in that language, it's pretty difficult to come in and
A lot
say,
of Latin.
yes, it's a lot of understanding. It took hours and hours and hours to get things done. So we all basically, even the law students, they had to go in behind and use Google to look up stuff and try to correlate, well, what's really going on here, especially with the drug digoxin, which is a very popular heart drug. People had to go behind the scenes and look for stuff. And then, of course, we were here to answer questions, but some of our witnesses actually worked hand in hand with the nursing students. And they would meet with them and just go over things and over things all the time until they actually learned the language.
Okay, thank you so much for being here, Ms.
Thank
Shelley.
you. I appreciate it.
All right, well, thank you so much for being here. We will take a short break and return in a couple of minutes. In the meantime, here is a short clip from the trial.
So, get this piece of chalk. All right, so in the beginning, if you hear me say ditch, that means I'm talking about digoxin because that's how it's known out in the community. So I'm just going to write ditch up here. So we know the patient, Miss Asadera, when I received the report, was taking 125 micrograms of this drug per day, or QD, for those that are in healthcare. Okay, so this 125 micrograms, she took on day 1, she took it on day 2, and she took it on day 3. Okay, so what digoxin does in this drug, say you've got Miss Asadera, she was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. She got too much fluid on the lung, on the heart, so her heartbeat has slowed down. So what digoxin does, it comes in and it increases that contraction, that force of that contraction, so it wants to push all that fluid out, it wants to push it out. So what happened in this case is very unique. So you have your SV node, which is your sinus node, your natural pacemaker, and you have your AV node, which is going to carry some of your conduction, some of your conductional currents from the heart. So anyway, both of these are combined, and they both come down on this little, for better or worse, it has a technical name, but we're just going to call it just a electrical current coming through here. So over here, what digoxin does to the body. So out here, just suppose this is a normal heart cell, which is sitting here, because we're talking about heart cells, and we're going to talk about this. So we have, potassium is normally inside the cell, and we have more sodium on the outside of the cell. They reference this in layman's term, like in anatomy and physiology, like we all had, as a sodium-potassium pump. So what happens is these cells are in your body all over. So what we have here is this pump is constantly going. You're moving sodium in, potassium out, sodium in, potassium out. But what happens when a patient takes digoxin? It comes in and slows this process. It stops this process. It
Jason,
blocks
I'm
it.
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I do. I thought we were here to talk about the autopsy. And
We're here to
are you-
explain why the
But are
patient
you,
died.
like, you're not even an expert witness. What are you talking about?
Objection, she is an expert
You did
witness.
not qualify her as an
This
expert.
one is
She is an
scope of
expert
practice.
witness in her field, so that.
Welcome back to MU Reports. Here we have Sandra, another one of the nurses involved in the trial. How are you today?
Thank you.
So what role did you play in the trial?
Well, actually, I'm actually a healthcare administrator.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of the, that is my major. So this was the first time that I was in one of the law classes, and I decided to play the part as a prosecutor.
Cool. So what type of preparation did you have to do?
Well, for me, it was very difficult because I was coming into all this new law terminology and everything, you know,
Right.
coming from the healthcare field. And I had to learn a lot. But I was blessed with Dr. Vonnegut helping me a lot, you know, and everyone, all the law students, because for me, this was, you know, something new.
Exactly. So it's like for them, it's learning the language of the body. And with you guys, it's like learning the language of the law.
Right.
So overall, did you have a good experience doing the mock trial?
I did, and I think it was wonderful this time that not just the nurses, but the healthcare administrators, everyone was involved.
Mm-hmm.
So we all worked together, and we're able to learn a lot of things on how the healthcare plays a part in the legal studies as well as the nursing, and everything just kind of goes with each other.
Was it difficult learning the new language of the law?
It is. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn, a lot of regulations. But I had a great team, and even all my, you know, all the students helped out. But it was a good experience. I really enjoyed it, and I would recommend law to anyone.
Really?
Because it is important.
It is important, yeah.
Not just for our field, but also, you know, for life itself.
Right, and you learn that, right, when you're doing your nursing teachings, basically. When you're doing that, you learn about HIPAA, right?
Yes.
So it's a lot of law incorporated into that.
Mm-hmm. And as administrators, what we do is we're the ones that do the policies for the hospitals.
Exactly.
And we do the hiring, and so we need to know the laws, and that's why I do feel blessed that Dr. Webster decided to put me in a minor in law. So I learned a lot, and I'm grateful for having them.
And how will this help you when you go out and venture out into the world and get your health administrations?
So for me, it helps out because, like I said, we're the ones that do the policies.
Mm-hmm.
And the law, basically, we need to know, you know, our protection and how we're to help the companies that we work for.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really important. And like I said, law is something I really found fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
I've
cool.
enjoyed it.
That's good. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
here. All right, so we will take a short break and return in a couple of minutes. In the meantime, here's a short clip from the trial.
Well, on here we have two different plants. Both are part of the Cardiolife family, Cardiolife family. On this side we have our oleander, which is what Dr. Ragnazzano believes that our victim was poisoned with. On the other hand, we have the foxglove plant, which is part of the same family. It's also a cardiofungicide and produces the same effects on the human body. So down here we have the chemical makeup or the chemical structure of each one of the toxins attributed to these plants. Over here is the digoxin. Now originally, according to Dr. Ragnazzano's statement, she believes that it was foxglove. Well,
the Digoxin, which is the medication that she was prescribed, was actually comprised of from the foxglove plant. Now, oleander is a more potent version of the cardiolide. And for the RIA test, it's non-specific because it only tests for a certain part of the chemical structure. So you have here, and same on the Digoxin, what makes them a cardiolide is they have this exact same portion of the structure. And that's what this test looks for. It's kind of like a pregnancy test. So it looks for one specific hormone before saying a positive or negative reading. So pregnancy tests, you can have certain cancer or certain hormones that could cause a false positive. And that's the same with this. It's not going to be specific to one or the other.
Welcome back. Next up, we have Taylor, one of the students involved in the trial. How are you today?
I'm doing well.
So what was your role in the mock trial?
I was one of the prosecuting attorneys with Sandra.
So how was it working with the nursing students?
So it was a little bit different for me because last semester, as Dr. Vonnegut mentioned, they worked in the civil trial with cybersecurity.
Right.
So I was lucky enough to be in the class, in both classes actually, the class that was helping and Dr. Vonnegut's class. So being essentially where the nurses were this semester, I understood what they were about to go through because trying to teach someone a field that they know nothing about can be a little frustrating at times because you're up here and they're down here.
Right.
And it's difficult to catch them up. But so I understood what they felt.
It's extremely frustrating coming from one thing into another, but that's how the real world really is. You know, you're working with all these different medical examiners and people from various backgrounds. So what was the greatest lesson that you learned doing the mock trial?
That's a great question. There's honestly so many different things that I've learned that it's hard to put a specific answer on one, to be honest. I know that I'm going to need the courtroom knowledge, so the minor's been extremely helpful because of my major. So I would just say with each mock trial, the more time that I spend in the courtroom is what helps the most.
Right. So comparing the two mock trials that you did participate in, which one did you think was more important when it comes to real life application?
When it comes to real life, I would say the civil. I would say the civil one in the fall because it dealt specifically with what I'm going into.
Okay.
But with the criminal trial, I could be involved in either side of it, in the civil or criminal. So they're both important, but because of the role I played in the fall would be more realistic to what I'm going to be doing, I would say the fall.
In the fall?
Yes, sir.
So do you recommend for next semester to have another major incorporated?
So I know in the fall semester, she is not, or Ms. Vonnegut is not doing the litigation class. So it'll just be one mock trial in the spring. I think it's a good idea to keep involving majors because as some of the other people y'all have interviewed have been saying, like, it's important that you get your feet wet, if nothing else.
Exactly, yes. It gives you a lot of experience. All right, well, thank you so much for being here with us today. We will now take a short break and return in a couple of minutes. In the meantime, here's another short clip from the mock trial.
Tell me how Miss Asadera was after she got into the hospital when she entered.
Yeah, so the biggest thing that she came in for was chest pain and also just upper respiratory issues. As here on my notes, for this cardiovascular, she had S3 heart sound beat, so her heart was beating very slow. She was pitting, which in medical terms 3+, so she had a high, she was taking on a lot of water, especially on the lower extremities, which means her heart wasn't functioning properly at the time that she was coming into the hospital. She was alert though, And there was some crackling noises in her lung, again, another sign of having too much fluid in her body. So she was just not in the best condition for her being.
Can you tell me the purpose of taking an apical pulse?
Yeah, so the apical pulse is primarily used for when a patient is on or taking digoxin. The digoxin is a very it's a prescription that has a very minimal window, would you say, for a patient. It's one of those that you have to give for heart failure, but you have to monitor closely. And so for the apical pulse, they use that because it's the best way to get someone's heart. You can do your radial or cardio or carotid, but the apical is to measure the pulse for digoxin specifically. And so for her at the hospital, Miss Tony, she had a heartbeat of less than 60 beats per minute, which if a patient has a heartbeat less than 60 beats per minute, you do not want to give digoxin. And it's one of those pills that are prescriptions that you make sure that it's met within the parameters. So at that time, digoxin was not within the parameters.
Okay. I would like to approach the witness again. I have another sure.
Welcome back to MU Reports. We have our last and final guest here today with us. This is Michael, and he was the defense attorney.
I was one of the defense attorneys.
So you guys actually won the mock trial.
Yes.
How does it feel to be a winner?
Well, as far as the case goes, the prosecution had a tough case to make. They were missing some information from what would have made a solid slam dunk for them. And as a defense attorney, part of our role was to play against their case and find holes in it. And we were successful in doing that, and I think we made a good case for our defendant.
So you were defending the nurse?
Yeah, Nurse Casey.
Nurse Casey. Cool. So can you tell me a little bit about your major?
My major is environmental management and compliance.
Cool.
And I've got a law minor.
A law minor. Okay. So what have you learned from this mock trial?
A couple things that I took away from the mock trial. One is don't procrastinate.
Why is that?
In dealing with the trial, there was a lot of information, and as you've heard from some of the previous students, some of it was detailed, perhaps not in your career field or in your major, so you had to do some extra research. So procrastinating certainly put you behind the 8 ball when you're trying to catch up with all that information. And then there's also preparation for the actual trial. If you've never been there or never gone to court, don't know how the proceedings work, you need to do some research on that as well so that you can be prepared for like entering evidence, being able to show proper respect to the court and to the judge, just procedural things.
So my next question has to deal with, I really want to touch on something that I've always been wondering when it comes to the mock trial. Do you guys know who's going to win before you even go out there? And are you planning, is there like a script, or is it literally you go out there and you try to do the best that you can and try to win?
Well, going in, we're given an information packet. Okay. And then from there, we divide up, students volunteer to be prosecution or defense. At that point, nobody knows who's going to win because you have to make your case.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's real life?
It's real life. The jury actually decided the fate of Nurse Casey that day.
Really?
Yeah, based on the evidence that was presented in court.
So the objections and everything like that was real? You guys were... Okay, that makes a lot of sense because it was I don't know, I felt like it was so hot in there. Everybody was like, no, this is like this is like this, Well, so that's interesting.
For the prosecution, I know they did a lot of rehearsal with their witnesses and things like that, and so did we. But as a defense strategy, part of our team mentality was to make sure that we were prepared for both sides. If the question didn't go quite our way and we could redirect and perhaps make the evidence seem somewhat shaky or poke a hole in prosecution's argument, then that was part of our theory.
And you're all
going in.
getting the same information packet, so therefore you
Right.
can find loopholes and say, you know what, they might argue for this or they might argue for that.
Right, just like when we had the argument over some of the evidence from the phone conversation, and then also from the state board investigation. Those two pieces, we actually made a motion prior to trial to have them thrown out, but
Wow.
the judge allowed it in the case because he wanted to see it play out and see how the evidence was presented.
Giving
during
you
the
guys
case.
more experience in
Yeah.
that. So how will this help you once you graduate and get your degree?
For me, because I'm a compliance guy or a health and safety type guy, as far as the legalities, being able to go back and do the research, on general statutes, on state and federal regulations, government regulations, things like that. So it really helps in researching those things.
Did you have to research any when it comes to the medical field?
Yeah, a lot.
A lot.
For
I
this
bet.
case.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here, Michael. And that concludes our show for today, you guys. Thank you all for tuning in to MU Reports. I'm Asada Williams, and I will catch you all next time.
Will the defendant please rise? Madam Clerk, announce the verdict.
Stand up. Attorney, stand up, because you should. You're part of his team.
Will the foreman of the jury please stand? Mr. Foreman, the jury has returned as its verdict as to the defendant, Casey Malvern, in file number XXX, that the defendant is not guilty. Is this the unanimous verdict of the jury?
Yes, ma'am.
So say you all.
You agree, raise your right hand. Court sees at least 12 hands. Have a seat.
All right, have a seat, because jury.